Hello, this is Hilda. You see Hilda the other day in a video I did where I had a mental breakdown. Basically all my cars, which have become demons, have all started having breakdowns of the mechanical kind, and Hilda's no exception. So you probably need to watch that video to get context, but to get mechanical details, we'll go into it here. Some of you are going to be watching this, anyone who watched that video and paid attention will be watching this going, I thought you were putting that away, walking away from it. Well, yes, I was going to, but I've had a change of heart. I've also had a haircut. Nothing to do with anything. Yeah, so I had a change of heart. I did go home and get my car out of the garage and bring it here, my other car. Oh dear, that's not actually fixed to the car. Yeah, I did do that, but I decided not to take Hilda home. Well, for two reasons. Firstly, because I don't know if it'd make it. Because there's a chance that it would break down on that short journey because of its overheating issue. But the other main reason was really that I thought, well, nothing's gonna happen with it. It's not gonna get fixed. It'll just go into my garage and get buried. And that's no good. Not with all the work I've put into it recently. That would be silly. So I've decided I will give the car a chance. I'll have a quick look at it. I'm having a slightly better time with cars. The Activa has come in and reinvigorated my, well, no, it hasn't reinvigorated anything. It stopped me looking for a tree with a branch that's quite strong and a bit taller than I am in the woods, remotely somewhere. Yeah, the Activa's come in and helped. So I've had good news with that. And my other car I got out of the garage, that all went very well. So I've had good luck with that. So I'm thinking, if I'm going to go and disappoint myself with cars, now is the time to do it, because I'm not already at my lowest. And that is why I'm going to inspect Hilda. I have some theories about what might have gone wrong with Hilda. Would you like to hear the theories? Good. Because otherwise it's going to be quite a quiet video. So the theories, I think, well, initially my reaction was that the head gasket had failed. I'll explain why I got to that conclusion. There are two coolant gauges in Hilda. I've fitted two coolant gauges. One of them does the coolant in the engine before the thermostat, and the other one does the coolant in the radiator output to the bottom hose. So once the radiator has cooled the coolant down, it's basically the temperature of the coolant that is heading back to the engine. So those gauges, I know how they work. I've not done a huge amount of miles with the two gauges in there, admittedly, probably about 200. But I did do the track day at Goodwood with those two gauges in there. So I know how they operate. I know the kind of normal temperatures I'm supposed to see. The thermostat in this engine, the Saxo VTR engine, opens at 89 degrees C. It will close at, I don't know, 80. 78, 80, 82, something like that. But of course, it's a wax stat, so it doesn't just go dunk. It will slowly close, and if it slowly closes, the temperature will slowly start rising and it will start opening again. That's how it manages the temperature in the engine. Keeps the coolant at the same point, whether, you know, I'm moving along or sat still or whatever. It needs to keep the air coolant in the engine at its operating temperature, and it does that. And the gauge was reflecting that. The gauge for the engine said between 85 and 90 degrees most of the time in traffic or in normal driving or whatever. Great, brilliant, that's what it's meant to do. The coolant gauge for the radiator, when it was all tickety-boo, was sitting at about 75, which again is okay, because it means that the coolant that came out of the engine went to the radiator, cooled slightly on the way to the radiator. So if the engine was at 90, the coolant may have hit the radiator at 88. Then it's gone through the radiator and been cooled by the air, and the radiator, well, that's what it's meant to do, cool the coolant. And so it's come out, and it's come out about, I don't know, like 12, 14 degrees lower than it went in. Ideal, brilliant. Comes back to the engine, brings it, you know, and it kind of, it works. There's a nice balance. What started happening was I started having trouble bleeding. Well, I started believing that I had trapped air in the cooling system. I kept using all the bleed points I've put in it. I kept finding that I had air coming out, and I thought, that's really weird. Why have I got air coming out? it was running on Evelyn's waterless coolant, and this is no slight against Evelyn's waterless coolant, it's just nature of the beast. I did a video on Evelyn's waterless coolant. There are pros and cons to it. It gave this car many, many pros. It has saved its ass, if I'm honest, in the past. But one of the downsides of it is that if you've got a cooling system that's big, like this one, because of all the pipe work in it, the radiator is at the front, and it's out of an MGF. There's all these pipes inside it, and then the back, it's a big cooling system. It's probably about 8.5 litres. If you have a big cooling system with lots of little tee-offs and things like that, Evans can be difficult to bleed in because it doesn't pressurise, so it doesn't naturally try and expel the air. It just flows in the path of least resistance. And if you've got a cooling system that is homemade, you're going to find that some bits of it flow better than others. If it was pressurising, it will just force its way around. That's supported by the fact that I've tried to put Evans coolant in MGFs before. I've had customers with MGFs, converted them to waterless coolant. They are a pig to bleed in. Even if you use all the normal bleed points and everything like that, they're a pig to bleed. You're jacking them up. You're jacking up the front, you're jacking up the back and using the bleed point because it just doesn't find its way around. Once it's bled in, it's fine. It's just getting it bled in. And it was kind of like that with this. I never remember it being like that, but I thought maybe I have made some changes. I did alter the heater circuit in this car to be more efficient, but yeah, maybe that's done something. So I thought I could faff about, or I could drop the waterless coolant out of it and just go back to water-based coolant. It's not the end of the world. Part of the reason I liked the waterless coolant was that I had, at the time, loose pipes inside, you know, individual pipes with silicone hoses, Jubilee clips, and I thought if I had a leak with water-based coolant, it will spray everywhere and spray on the people, like me. Now the cooling system in this car is more steel, it's more heavy duty. Even if it did spring a leak in there, it wouldn't hit anyone. At worst, it would, maybe the footwell would start steaming a bit in the front or the back. That's the only two places. So I thought to myself, I'm going to take the Evans out of it, because if I keep getting air trapped in it and it runs too hot, possibly because it's got air trapped in it. So I will take the Evans out, put water in, hopefully it'll burp itself, pressurise a bit, burp itself, off we go. And that hasn't happened. All that's happened is it's doing what it did before, only worse, and because it hasn't got Evans coolant in it anymore, it boils up, which is something I've forgotten actually, because a lot of my cars run waterless coolant and I've completely forgotten what it's like to overheat. I think the gauge got to about 110 degrees and I thought, oh, I should turn it off. That's long story short, it was running hot. I thought it might be the coolant. It wasn't. I'm getting air at the highest points in the cooling system, like the heater. People in the comments, a lot of people in the comments, oh, the hoses are too big, too small, this, that and the other. It's been like that for 2,500 miles and it's worked beautifully. Cooling system on this car, when I first put this back together recently, a few weeks ago, sat in here, the car was running for about 45 minutes, behaving impeccably. Fans coming on, you could watch the temperatures on the gauges, fans cut in, brings it down, fans cut out, fans come on again like 5 minutes later, bring it down, off they go, because it's got two fans in the front. It's worked. I couldn't have asked for more. The only thing that was a bit rubbish was how good the heater was. It wasn't very hot, it was just kind of, it was sort of warmish, unless you revved it. If you revved it, it heated up, and I think, well, a lot of old cars are like that, so I wasn't really too fussed. But one thing people have said in the comments, because of course I've been thinking, well, that's head gasket, isn't it? Like there's air coming into the cooling system, and I've burped it and bled it and then fired it up and I've got air in it again. So there must be combustion gases escaping from the engine into the cooling system. But a few people have said water pump, and I confess, I had considered the water pump. I hadn't mentioned it, but I did wonder, because that could cause the engine to get a lot hotter than the radiator. As I say, the engine would normally sit at 85, 90, radiator 75-ish, give or take. But over time, the engine has been going up and the radiator has been going down, and to the point now where it doesn't read. Like the lowest number on the gauge is 40, and it's under that. It doesn't hit 40. Is the coolant not flowing anymore? Possibly. That would have those symptoms. What are the odds of that? Pretty slim, because that water pump's done 2,500 miles, most of it with Evans waterless coolant in there, meaning it's not going to have corroded. Sometimes you have a water pump with a plastic impeller, you don't change the coolant frequently enough, the shaft that the impeller is pressed onto corrodes, it cracks the plastic because it expands, the impeller stays there, but the shaft just turns inside it, the impeller does nothing. But it hasn't got that coolant in, it's had Evans in it. Unless the Evans has done something to a plastic impeller, and unless that is the impeller in this even plastic, I don't know. So the odds of the water pump being at fault are very remote. But the water pump's been in there 2,500 miles, or about 11 years. The Cambelt has been on there about 11 years, which is not, that's more than it's meant to be. So what I'm going to do is pull the Cambelt off and have a look at the water pump. If we look under the skirt of Hilda, naughty, we have, like, I made a bonnet stave for it and everything. All before, what was that before? Rustival? Can't remember. Now that doesn't get flipped back and hit the window. So the water pump, because this is a Saxo engine, the water pump is Cambelt driven, and it's behind here. Literally there. So I'm hoping I can take these covers off, access it all, and change it without removing this, because that is an arse to remove. It shouldn't be, but because I've prattled around with this car, it now is. Yeah, I don't think this is going to be the issue, if I'm honest, but it doesn't take much to try and find out. Right, so I've got my parts here. I've got a Cambelt, and this is weird because it says it fits Citroen AX 1.4, 1.4 GTI, Citroen BX, Citroen C15, Citroen Zara, Citroen Saxo, Citroen Zara Picasso 1.6, Peugeot 106, Peugeot 309 1.4, and Peugeot 405 1.4. It does not mention Hillman Imp, so it's obviously wrong. Also, I have got a new water pump, cheap off eBay. Look, genuine. And it didn't come with a seal. So this is just the top cover, 2 bolts. And there's the top pulley, and oh, I've dropped all my washers and stuff. So there's the top pulley. And that belt is probably not too bad. Well, it's quite, it's actually quite loose. Maybe it does need doing. The water pump is down there, sort of here. Yeah, it's going to be fun to get to, isn't it? I cannot remove this, which is a pain. I thought I might be able to. I have to remove the engine mount. I could probably do that if I put a jack under the engine. Oh, I've lost my timing marker that we made. Careful not to destroy my TDC sensor, or crank sensor. What do you reckon? You gonna play ball now? Nuts! The engine mount is in the way. Right, so the engine is now, well, I've got a trolley jack under the engine, but it's just picking the whole car up. Once I've removed the engine mount, I think that will change. That situation will become, well, a different situation. Oh, there we go. That's how light the car is. It starts to lift the car before it lifts the engine out the mount. Luckily, I'm quite familiar with how all this goes together, you know, because I've only just put it in. I really don't want to take this back panel off. That would just be a pain. I mean, if I have to do the head gasket, I'll have to take the back panel off. But we'll see. I've found some loose bolts on the side here, which is slightly concerning. Because why have I left them loose? I think they just had P-clips on, and whatever it was that was routed there is no longer there. But that one's got a spring washer on it and everything. So yes, hopefully we can just and remove this whole housing, which is the Saxo housing, and it's made of all different size fixings, because of course that's probably not the Saxo, that's probably me. You're gonna hurt knuckles. God, it's fun, isn't it? That should, yes. There we go. 23rd of May 1997. That's when that was made. And then hopefully, yes, carbon fibre. That is very light. So we can see, there's the water pump. With a, it's got to be said, the pulley is a lot bigger than it needs to be. Well, that's what I'm going to take off anyway. I'm going to rotate the engine until the until it is at the position that it needs to be at. There's a key here and a little locating lug that will lock the camshaft in place. The bottom end on this, the hole is behind the exhaust manifold, which in a Saxo wouldn't be a problem. You could just lean down in the engine bay and get it. But in this, I can see it, but some idiots put a 421 manifold in the way and buried it at the back of the engine bay. Yeah. Right, so I've got my spanner on the bottom pulley. I'm just going to rotate the engine in the very limited room I have. I haven't done a compression test yet. If the water pump isn't leaking, I'm going to change the water pump anyway. But if I find no issue with it, then I'll move on to doing, not today, but I'll move on to doing compression tests and things in the future, just to see if they, you know, I'm resigned to the fact that I'm probably going to have to pull the head off this anyway, but I'd quite like to find out, you know, see if there's any screaming obvious issue before I condemn it. There we go. Right, so that's lined up. I'm not going to bother with the bottom end. I didn't say that because I have a feeling I'm going to be taking it all apart anyway. So I'm just going to mark the bottom end, because the bottom end could be 180 degrees out. So, but it doesn't matter if I'm not going to pin it. I don't think I can. Is there anything I can? No. Oh damn, I can't even mark it. Right, so that's the pin that goes in there, so that locks the camshaft. Oh, screw it, I'm gonna have to do the bottom end. Right, I wimped out. Now I've locked the bottom end. And for some reason I can't get the top pin in. There you go. Right, the engine is now locked. Hitting the key to try and start it right now would be a very bad idea. So, what we're going to do, I don't know if you'll be able to see any of this. Let's see if I can be moderately useful. What do you reckon? Don't know how much of this you can see. Oh, you're just about to see it. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I've got to take the Cambelt off. That's very easy. I'll just release the tensioner by undoing this nut. That's all I've got to do. The tensioner will rotate, the belt will go slack and simply come off. And I can't actually remove the belt because some plum has left the bottom pulley on. Right, well, that can come later. What's the belt like? It's not bad actually. Nothing wrong with it. Even if I bend it right back. It's fine. Oh well. Right, I'm not worried about that. Water pump is what I'm worried about. Now this is going to drop a load of coolant, and some numpty has put a jack underneath where I would put the bucket. Bolt on the water pump, that's that one done. Look. Oh, my lights died, bloody useless this thing. Don't ever buy one of these. Draper. It's absolute garbage, light lasts about 5 minutes. Battery, and it dies. So that's the water pump. 2 bolts hold it in. The other one is a pig to get to, of course. Definition of optimism is hoping a swan neck spanner gets you out of the mire. Can't imagine it will. Oh, no, it has. It has. I've got drain points for the cooling system that I've engineered into it, but they're under the car and it's not on a ramp, and I don't want to be fretting about putting it on the ramp now. So, like as I said, I'm trying to cut corners, see if I can suss out what was up with this damn car. Actually, let's take that tensioner out, that's going to make sense. See, that feels mint. But then, so it should, because it's not very old. Why do we do it? Why do we build project cars? Do you know, I would have had perfect access to all of this when I had the engine out. That is sod's law. Here we go. Hilda's crankshaft pulley. Face avant, because it's French, but it's got this bit welded on. Because that's the Hilda part of it. There's the bottom cover, which means the Cambelt can now gracefully relieve itself of duty. Thank you for your service. Nothing wrong with you. Oh, bloody hell, it's welded on there, that water pump. They do this. I had to chisel one of them off in about 500 pieces once. It's an alloy water pump housing in an iron block. Thing is, it had waterless coolant in, so it should be fine. I can't actually get the water pump off. I'm gonna have to give it some persuasion. I don't have to be too gentle because it's going in the bin. Come on. Oh my God, really? We're going to do this again, are we? What? Oh God. Look. Why? Tell you what, there is. Oh. This is completely unrelated. Don't know if you can hear it. I think the water pump might have gone. Oh, can you imagine? Oh, no, hang on. No, it has moved. There's me thinking I've just chipped a bit off it. I haven't. It's just, I've dislodged it slightly, so it's rubbing slightly. Oh my God. Oh, it's finally started to come off. It still won't go. There we go. There was nothing wrong with the water pump. It was just where I'd started hitting it, I'd dislodged it slightly. Got all excited then. Nothing wrong with it at all. Didn't think there would be. And it's just dawned on me that to do a compression test, I would have to put the whole thing back together again. Which I don't think I'm going to bother doing at the moment, if I'm honest. That's annoying. I thought, when I first felt that, I was so excited. And it didn't dawn on me that the water pump had actually moved when the first bit chipped off it, and it was just kissing the block. Damn. Not only that, so that's the aftermarket one that went on it. I forget what make that was. And this is the genuine one, which has the Peugeot and Citroen logo in there, which you probably won't be able to see, but same design. Same metal impellers. Is it the same pump? No. I need to get one of these for my wife's Saxo, but damn. HGF, I think. Or a blockage somewhere. It's the other possibility, but well, it's pretty conclusive. It's not the water pump. That's quite annoying. I was hoping it was. It would have been a nice easy fix, but I also thought it was pretty unlikely because, well, it's done 2,500 miles and it feels like it, to be honest with you. It's mint, it's fine. Logic said it should be absolutely fine because it's been running in waterless coolant, and it is absolutely fine. So I think I'm gonna have to do the head gasket. So I'm going to have to take the cylinder head off and send it off and get it pressure tested, make sure it's not cracked or something stupid like that. Why would the head gasket be gone already? It's not a wet liner engine, it's an iron block, so there's no liners that could have dislodged or anything like that. Yeah. But I'm going to find out, because I'm not going to muck about with this. Leak down test. I should do a leak down test. A leak down test is kind of like a compression test, but instead of screwing it into the spark plug bores and cranking the engine and seeing what pressure it can create, you basically screw an adapter into the spark plug bore and push compressed air in there, and then go around and see where the compressed air is coming out, where it's leaking. If it's not leaking, the gauge will just go up and it will stay there. A bit of it will leak out because you'll have things like, you know, piston rings and things. You will get a little bit of blow by, but if you take the oil cap off and you can hear massive hissing in there, you know you've got a big leak through the piston rings or through the cylinders or something. Likewise, go and open the coolant cap, see if you can hear bubbling. That's got to be worth doing before I go pulling the head off. Watch this space.